Alright guys, so we're back at it again, disproving another one of Eiriley's videos. This one is probably the worst out of all of ones he's done so far, but let's just get right into it. First off, Eiriley is trying to think that Ivav's 12s, also known as Eiriley, videos on Shadowplay are okay, because of my argument or whatever. Now here's the problem, and people are criticizing me for not doing enough research. He should do more research. Two reasons actually. For one, Riot even experienced these Shadowplay issues over on Twitter, asking people for help on how to solve this issue. And two, if you Google Shadowplay variable framerate, you'll see countless posts on Reddit, forums, and all sorts of media like that, asking for help on how to solve this issue. Tutorials are also included as well, although I don't know which ones work since I have no experience with Shadowplay. I also want to mention that him mentioning Ivav 12 harkens back to when Noctafly said his girlfriend for evidence. If you end up doing research on people as to who Eiriley is citing, many of them are longtime Eiriley fans, or in this case, Ivav 12 is the uploader and verifier of Lin Anya, an extremely unbalanced and buggy level, and, according to Eiriley, part of his family. A logical person would be like, well, why would Eiriley cite someone who verified his own passion project? Why would a close relative already not be biased to believe him? So, that's a major problem and should not have been included in the rushed script. It's why this single point is redundant and was made to milk the video to 20 minutes. Also, the fact you, Eiriley, didn't expose Ivav 12 for his variable framerate issues, but you exposed Yossarian for his variable framerate issues shows you have a personal bias. So let's move on. Now, as for why Shadowplay wants to bring up these variable framerate issues, I do not work on the software itself. The software requires you to have a NVIDIA graphics card. The software would take up the GPU usage, which you'd think it'd be nice since the GPU is stronger than the CPU, and Geometry Dash runs off the CPU. It's on NVIDIA themselves for having this issue on by default. In fact, I even tested this myself with an RTX 3070 i9-10900 Intel CPU, 64GB of RAM, and the issue still persisted. That's pretty much the simple truth, no matter your graphics card setup. Even with the beast of a PC used to render Blender cycles, you're gonna get these frame delays. And if you look at my community post, the lowest frame rate the raw footage had was 32.067 FPS. And the only reason I used 59.94 FPS as an example was because both Blender and Vegas Pro 17 provide these frame rates as render options. If you use OBS Studio, which is what I use, you get a constant frame rate, as you can see from my Death Corridor raw footage. I think the most suspicious thing here is that Eiriley tried to pass off saying that there are 27 millisecond delays, even though when you divide 1000 milliseconds, which equals to 1 second, by 60 frames per second, it gives you 16.7 milliseconds, which Eiriley then doubled down and said that it's 16.7 milliseconds instead of 27 milliseconds. And for everyone wondering what 59.94 frames per second equates to, it's 16.6 milliseconds. So next, Eiriley tries to make the claim of why the video is smooth, even though the raw footage has these variable framerate issues, when we should have seen them. I think everyone here has some sort of video editing software, like Blender or Vegas Pro 17. When you render out these videos, you'll always get a constant frame rate based on what you render out. So if you render at 24 frames per second and look at it in media info, you'll always get 24 frames per second with a constant frame rate. 30 frames per second gives 30 frames per second with a constant frame rate. 60 frames per second gives 60 frames per second with a constant frame rate. And 120 frames per second gives 120 frames per second with a constant frame rate. And whenever you render out a video with a variable frame rate, the video editing software smooths out the video as best as it can possibly be to be a consistent 60 frames per second, even if that means desyncing the audio. Just about every video editing software doesn't do well with variable frame rates, Blender and Vegas Pro 17 included. This basically summarizes why these delays happen. The fact that Eiriley put this in the video when he uses a video editing software for himself, for as long as I have used Blender or Vegas Pro for all I know, is questionable. Now, next thing Eiriley mentioned, which is interchangeable with 2 points, he questions why Yossarian doesn't have enough proofs. But then, on the other hand, why do we believe him even though there's inconsistencies on the proof streams? Here's the thing, Eiriley requested proof streams for all the people he exposed, notably Kermie, which Kermie obliged, and Eiriley hasn't said anything for months now because he realized he lost. Streaming on the 1.9 private server, might I ask. But then, when you think about it, Eiriley just doesn't want to accept the fact that Yossarian also obliged to doing proof streams. In fact, Yossarian even has done streams before verifying VSC. So, if you're wanting to expose Yossarian, you should also consider the other streams. I would also like to mention in VSC, the first half is much harder than the second half, which means if you pass the first half and have good enough practice for the second half, you can actually fluke it really hard. Plus, if you think about it, other people have made massive flukes in the past, I myself included. For Death Corridor, the pre-drop is far easier than the drop itself, which means you're going to fluke the pre-drop hard. VSC is a far shorter level than Death Corridor in addition, in many other levels. This just shows Eiriley doesn't know about Yossarian's skill ceiling, and even other top players like Trick, Wolves, and many more players. This entire section is completely unnecessary, and is a filler to boost Eiriley's other points to make them look stronger. This has nothing to do with inconsistent skill, it's just how the game works. And for context on how skilled Yossarian is at VSC in reality, he passed 30% over 20 times, 48%, 58%, and 62%, and getting a 99.75% no-clip accuracy run, all on stream. And when playing from 24%, which is where the level slowly loses its difficulty, he could get to or pass 58% after a few attempts. And I want to harken back to my Death Corridor runs. I always practice from 38% and can pass the 50% wave, which is the hardest part for me, about once every 3 times, despite me being on 144 Hz and sucking at wave badly. And that's because of me building up skill, which is how the game works. Now, last thing before we end this video, he's trying to argue the point of why I even included the point where monetizing and exposing video is bad, even when there's copyright material. So basically, for anyone who doesn't know, a video can be monetized in 2 ways. Either you are qualified to monetize your videos, which you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, and enable monetization yourself, or include music that is copyrighted, which would immediately monetize the video no matter what. The difference is if you monetize your video without any copyright material, all the money goes to you as the creator, whereas if the copyright music was added, all the money would go straight to the music artist. So, Eiriley argues the point on why he can't monetize the Yossarian exposing video, while the Kermie exposing video was monetized. You see, the problem with the Yossarian video, that has no form of music included, it's just Eiriley speaking, which means the video is eligible to be monetized and all the money goes directly to Eiriley. The Kermie video, on the other hand, has a copyright soundtrack included, which is written by Chameleonaire, and whatever this track is on the second exposing video. So, even though the Kermie exposing video is monetized, none of the money is going to Eiriley. And to clarify, this wasn't just like some sort of coincidence. We opened up both the response video and the initial exposing video with ad block off on Google Chrome with incognito tabs open, and then closed those tabs. We tried it with both videos, and the advertisements came up. And when we tried it with my videos, since they're not monetized, we came back clean with no ads at all. I find it extremely ironic how he mentioned right at the start of the first Kermie exposing video that it's not monetized, yet the exposing videos after that are monetized, including the Only Facts video, which has no music in it whatsoever. We've checked all those videos for any copyright material, and none of them besides the first 2 Kermie exposing videos are monetized for Eiriley and not for the individual music artists. Call it whatever you want, but this is a scummy way to make money. It's like making money off of someone's death, which I would not be surprised if Eiriley's Michigan video was monetized. Which, you wouldn't you know it, it's exactly what happened. Small editor note, I'm not saying Eiriley shouldn't monetize all of his content. I'm saying that his video choices to be monetized that don't have copyright material are put into question. Making money off of someone's death, making money off of manipulating a community, making money off of ruining someone's career. He can monetize his videos all he wants, but making money off of those shady things is disgusting and most people agree with me. There you go, my easy response on this milked video. Eiriley, I've disproved you for the 4th time. Our squad has debunked you once again. You don't know what you're talking about. You're digging yourself deeper in a hole. You just need to confess about this stuff and apologize to Yossarian. It's getting really bad. This situation does not need to go on. Well, thanks guys for watching this video. If I absolutely have to make a third video on this topic, which I really don't want to, I will, because the word about this whole situation and what's really the truth needs to get out there. Other than that, again, thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you're not getting manipulated over and over and over again by Eiriley. And hopefully you actually accept the facts and not trust what Eiriley is infamous for. Being a cut chaser, trying to make views and money off of ruining someone's career off of the internet. If, at this point, you're going to create some ultimate cheating method that cannot be detected and claim Yossarian used that, how can you prove if he used it if it's undetectable? That would be the same as me saying XN cheated with some undetectable cheat method I can't prove. It doesn't make much sense, does it? I find it funny how aggressive Eiriley is with this situation. It basically repeats how aggressive he was in the Kermi situation, which is completely unprofessional. Let me just show you a slideshow of how terrible Eiriley is. Spoiler, he deleted these posts to blanket cover the situation. But until then, I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.